Welcome, true crime lovers. This is Underage and Full of Rage. Welcome, everyone, to the first ever episode of Underage and Full of Rage, the podcast where the convicted are minors and their crimes are anything but. I am your host, Becky, and with me is my co-host, Adam.
Hello.
And today we are going to be sharing a terrible story about a young girl who just wanted to fit in and a group of followers who let a bully do an unspeakable act. This is the story of Kimmy Dotts. It was Mother's Day weekend back in 1998, and in Kerwinsville, a small mining town located near Clearfield, Pennsylvania, 15-year-old Kimmy Dotts is being invited to spend 2 nights at her new friend Dawn's house. According to her family, Kimmy did not have many friends, so when she came home that day to see if she could stay at her friend's house, the consensus of the family was one of delight and joy for their Kimmy. With Dawn being 14 and with Kimmy being 15, I can only assume the two girls knew each other from school, but other than that, I couldn't find any information on how well the girls actually knew each other or for how long. I couldn't even find out how they even met. The only information I could find was that she was just invited to spend the weekend at that Dawn girl's house, who apparently was a new friend, quote unquote, which I don't know. I feel like that's a little weird. There was only one condition for Kimmy, though, to go. If she wanted to spend the weekend at Dawn's house, she had to at least make sure she was home on that Sunday to spend Mother's Day with the family, which actually wasn't an issue for Kimmy because she loved her family and genuinely wanted to spend time with them. I could understand for most 15-year-olds that not being the case, but Kimmy was very different. So when Mother's Day arrived and Kimmy was nowhere in sight, her entire family knew something was wrong, and they immediately went into panic mode, wasting no time in calling the police. After Kimmy was reported missing, the cops started asking around town if anyone had seen her, and what they got was...
It's crazy that you go to the cops right away and not to the girl's house and be like, yo, where's my daughter at?
Oh, yeah, like, especially back in those days, you totally had,
This is how many years ago?
Like the phone numbers.
Shit was different then, yeah.
It was always like, okay, I need to talk to her mom, or at least give me the phone number of where you're going to be, or where are you staying, if you personally...
You know, yeah, exactly.
That's a good point.
And the first thing, I don't know. Maybe they did, maybe, I don't know.
Or maybe they just knew something was wrong, and it was one of those where... If you don't know, like, I feel like my parents probably would immediately be like, something's weird, call the, like...
Yeah.
You know, I don't know, especially if you don't know the parents.
That's true.
And
yeah.
And to me, since she didn't have, like, a lot of other friends, because you would first go to those people, right?
Yeah.
Like, your mom would call, like, your friends close, like, parents, if anything, first, or your friends to be like, have you seen him? Right?
Yeah, I still feel like you would call that house and be like...
Although, maybe they did.
That's true. You said there's not a lot.
Yeah, this story, there's a lot of limited, or I guess not a lot, there's very limited information out there, so maybe they did do that first, and then when they couldn't track her down...
Then they were like, yo...
Yeah, that's a possibility. I'm not entirely sure, so I guess we won't jump to that conclusion. So after Kimmy was reported missing, the cops started asking around town if anyone had seen her, and what they got was multiple people stating that Kimmy was seen with a group of friends who were all talking about hitching a ride to Florida. The so-called group of friends that Kimmy was apparently seen with consisted of mostly kids ranging from the ages of 14 to 17 years old, but there was also technically 2 adults, one being 18 and the other being 24, which is weird. Like, why is a 24-year-old chilling with a bunch of kids? Is that just me?
No, that's creepy.
That's weird.
Creepy and weird, yeah. You're weird.
And I feel like I remember being, in your teens, there's always that one rando that's graduated high school but still lingering around.
Yeah.
But you were never actually friends with them.
No, they just were there.
To, like, buy beer and stuff.
They just appeared and stuff.
And they, like, thought they were cool, and everybody was laughing at them, not with them.
Right. How old are you?
So, back to who these kids are. Well, there were two 14-year-olds, one being Dawn. Her last name, I think this is how you pronounce it, Langager? I don't know. I don't say it much. Who invited Kimmy along. And then the other one was Teresa Wolf. There's also Patrick Lucas, who is 16 years old. And then Clint Canaway was 17. Tracy Lewis was the 24-year-old and also Kimmy's cousin. And then the last two kids that make up this group, and pretty much the main culprits of this story, are Aaron Straw, who was 18, and then the main culprit is Jessica Holtmeyer, who was 16 at the time, and she was also dating Straw. So this group liked to refer to themselves as the Runaway Gang because all of them had developed this crazy, wonderful, farcical idea that they were all going to run away to Florida and leave their shitty little lives in this shitty little town behind them. They're
Go to Florida. Go to Florida. Man.
It's very classy.
Uh,
No, I don't know. Coming from New York, I hated Florida growing up, so I can't say anything.
It's very one of those like. It's fucking crazy.
There was very little information on this group of teens, but I was able to find some information on Jessica's childhood. However, what I did find was very apparently contradicting. Some sources stated that her childhood was not that great and that she lived with her grandmother and was known to apparently be a bully. Then I also found sources discussing some rumors about her that involved her setting cats on fire and strangling a poodle. Not really sure how true that is, but they were out there. That's what some sources said.
Oh my god, set fucking cats on fire. Okay.
So, I mean, where does this rumor there's stuff like that just doesn't come out of nowhere, right?
I wouldn't think so, but I mean, I don't know.
So, in the court, apparently, her relatives, though, expressed that she had never displayed any type of violent behavior, nor had she gotten into any trouble before, with the exception of smoking at school and leaving class early. That's all she's done bad kid-wise, I guess you can say, according to them. And also, according to them, she was a part of a youth group, was an altar server, and even helped her uncle who was handicapped. Well, that was what the document said. I think the correct term now is disabled. And then Jessica's grandma, who was her main caretaker, told the courts through tears that she couldn't believe that Jessica would do the things she was being accused of. Now, why she lived with her grandma, I do not know, but it's not like her mom wasn't in her life either, because her mom was present in court as well. And if I remember correctly, when I was reading through the documents, I believe she testified like a character witness type situation. I believe she testified as well, stating that like Jessica was not violent or anything.
That's crazy, but I mean, most of the time would never do something like that, and then all of a sudden, so yeah.
Well, I also have to. I just sometimes I feel like if you're not living with your parents, but they're still kind of in your life, like there has to be some instability there. If you're living with your grandma, there's got to be a reason for that. I've only ever known one person that was the case.
There's definitely got to be a reason behind it.
Pretty it's like there has to be some instability as to why she was living with her grandma in the first place. And even if it's nothing too crazy, that still, I feel like, affects a child, that they're not with their biological parents in that, that type of environment. I feel like it just changes the dynamic.
The whole moving out of it's got to mess you up a little bit.
There's got to be some.
It's got to be something a little.
Right?
Messing with you about that, yeah.
And then I also think that the difference in the perceptions of the type of kid she was demonstrates how different kids can be depending on who they are around. I also think that kids tend to put on the facade that they are angels when they are around their family, but can be a complete asshole when they are with their friends.
Definitely.
Right? So, judging by how her friends portrayed her, I would say when it came to her friends, she was more probably domineering and not as sweet as she was with her family. So naturally, in my mind, because she was more of a bully, I believe she was probably like the leader of the runaway gang by default.
The 24-year-old wasn't?
Well, you know what I was gonna say though, because usually when you have that kid that just is more of like the domineering is the only word I can think of. Usually the other kid, you just normally become like subservient to them and you just like let them go because you don't want to even start a problem with them.
Yeah.
Because they're, you know.
Yeah.
So I mean, but I don't know. I don't know. This is just my opinion. I could be very wrong. And like, so Kimmy, on the other hand, was the complete opposite of Jessica. She was quiet and didn't have many friends. Sources stated as well that even though she was 15, she did have some mental difficulties, so that made her, you know, a little younger mentally and probably more naive to the world around her. So when it comes down to it, Kimmy was just an honest, innocent 15-year-old girl who was genuinely harmless, which is just very unfortunate for what's to come. And a lot of the information I found, again, since it was so limited, came from court documents. And apparently the events that took place that weekend consisted of all the kids just hanging out, you know, normal bullshit. At one point, they stole a car in preparation to go to Florida. Maybe not such just general. I never stole a car with my friends, so I don't know. Maybe I wasn't wild enough. I don't know. But at some point, they ended up apparently crashing this car, and from where they crashed it, they decided to walk to Jessica's house. So she wasn't with them physically during that part, but Kimmy was. And apparently she was with them the whole time. I don't know if she was just pretending she was going to go to Florida or if she was planning on it at first and then, like, you know, not realizing what she was actually committing to. But it states in the documents that this whole time she was with the group. After they crashed the car and they ended up trooping it to Jessica's house, they showed up, but she was sleeping. Aaron testified that when Jessica noticed Kimmy at her house, she became angry with him and wanted to know why she was there because she didn't like her and that she was apparently a snitch. There was testimony also discussing how Jessica had the movie Scream on and that she commented on how it would be fun to hang someone. I don't know. I get the impression this was a normal statement for this girl. I feel she is into that shock value bullshit in her, like, 16
Let me
shithead.
say something crazy and sound like the nut. And,
Yeah.
One of those ones,
You know those kids.
Yeah.
I feel like, and that's what I get the impression. Like, I just get that feeling from statements and stuff that she just was all about that image to maintain that image, I guess you could say more so. After they left Jessica's house, the group headed to a hunting camp where they were planning on staying until that night because they were going to leave for Florida. They had it in their heads. This was the plan for the weekend, which I have to sidetrack and say, if that was the plan from the get-go, why invite this Kimmy girl along if you're not, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if she's not really in the friend group, you guys have this as a group plan to escape to Florida. Why are you inviting a newbie along in the first place? Isn't that weird?
It is kind of weird, but maybe they just wanted to, like, do some crazy shit before they took off. I mean, they did steal a car. How far do you think you're gonna get in a stolen friggin' car?
Well, when you're 14, very far.
Yeah,
I'm getting
true.
to Florida. What are you talking about?
Yeah, that's true.
But still, that didn't really answer my question. I'm thinking.
Yeah,
like,
no, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
You wouldn't invite an outsider.
No.
Right? I know it's a long time ago, but I'm trying to think back to my, like, 14, 15, 16-year-old. You wouldn't invite an outsider to do that. So why did you get invited in the first place if this was the plan at the end of the weekend? Right?
Well, because she did have to be home on Sunday, so maybe it was hang out for the weekend and you guys dip out and I go home. You know what I mean?
Maybe. Oh, good point.
Like Sunday morning, I'm going home and you guys hit the road.
You guys, yeah, or like I'll leave when you go.
I don't know.
Okay, yeah, all right, I'll give you that. So while at the hunting camp, the group was out doing the usual teenage bullshit and getting into mischief, indulging in a little vandalism and whatnot. It was reported that they vandalized some cabins, including flipping one over, which in my mind was kind of impressive. I don't know how a bunch of teenagers do that, but Bravo. They apparently stole a dog, some liquor, as well as sparklers and a clothesline rope. Not sure when or how, but at some...
Stole a dog, no shit.
Yeah.
That's
and I couldn't find anything more on that. They were never, like... I don't know if they just let the dog go, like, or somebody came by and was like, hey, that's my dog. Like, it was, I'm telling you, it was so limited, the information on this case. It's crazy. Not sure, again, how it came up, but while talking about going to Florida, Kimmy had mentioned she wasn't into it anymore, which tells me that she was apparently planning to go. Or again, I don't think she really realized what she was committing to. She was probably just going along with stuff, and then as the time was coming down, she was like fuck this. But she did say that she didn't want to go because she didn't want to leave her mom. And after this, her cousin Tracy, according to sources, started going around to other kids in the group, warning them that Kimmy might snitch on their plans to run away. So, according to other sources, Tracy had developed this idea of Kimmy snitching because one time she was throwing an underage party that was raided by police, and she, for some reason, was convinced that Kimmy was the one talking to the cops. So when this party occurred, I have no idea, but regardless, I'm sorry, you're a fucking loser, because, again, if you're, 24 at this point. If you had this in the past 3 years, she gets younger and younger with that. So you're really mad at your, 12-year-old cousin for ratting you out and rated?
Trash. Trash does get mad at stuff like that.
That is true. That is true.
You know?
That is true. Because I was going to say rated, it's probably like they showed up and they were like, everybody dump out your beers and go home.
Yeah.
Like,
Somebody
it's the 90s.
The parents' ticket.
They didn't have the rule then that the parents get in trouble, so...
Yeah. None of that existed.
No. I don't know. I just feel like at this time, her cousin's definitely, the Tracy chick's in like an Arrested Development state where she still thinks she's easily 17 years old, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it is a small town, so that could also have something to do with it. You're very limited with like people to surround yourself with, I guess. I don't know. I'm trying to give benefits of the doubt here, and I don't think I'm coming up with any.
You're stretching real hard.
So, when Kimmy made the statement about not wanting to go, her cousin pretty much put it in Holtmeyer's head that she was going to snitch on them. From here, Holtmeyer felt Kimmy needed to prove her loyalty, and at which point Tracy grabbed Kimmy and told Jessica to put the rope around Kimmy's neck. Which she did, and then Jessica proceeded to walk Kimmy around as if she was a dog. The whole time this was going on, Tracy could be seen laughing at Kimmy's expense. One of the kids, not sure who, but one did eventually tell Jessica to stop, which put an end to the humiliation for the time being. Thank God for that. As the kids continued on, Jessica gave the rope to Aaron, who at some point decided to throw it over a branch, stating it was time for initiation, quote unquote. One by one, each kid, with the exception of Jessica and Aaron, which I found interesting, put their head through the noose and around their neck. Kimmy was the last one to go, and probably because she didn't know these kids from a hole in the wall, was very hesitant to do so. But of course the kids, were persistent and egging her on, so she finally went through with it. And as she placed her head through the noose, according to some sources, Tracy yelled, yank it, and at which point Aaron did. He pulled down on the rope, tightening the noose around Kimmy's neck and bringing her to her tippy toes for about 20 to 30 seconds, but released her due to the sounds of a four-wheeler approaching. Kimmy, clearly upset and choking, took the noose off, and I'm not sure why, but apparently at this point, everyone except Kimmy, Jessica, Aaron, and Teresa had left. So right now it's just Kimmy, Jessica, Aaron, and Teresa in that same area. And I'm not sure where the other kids went or why. Again, details very, very limited. There are some gaps as well as conflicting storylines in the information altogether. So I'm kind of trying to piece this together as best as I can. I basically went with what was the most consistent amongst all sources. So, pretty much reports did state that they all ended up walking away. For some reason, Aaron decided to place the rope over another tree, and that this time, and this time when he did, he tied the other end to a rock. And for a second time, they convinced sweet Kimmy to put her head through one more time. And Kimmy, obviously upset, did not want to. After a little while, she finally relented, and when she placed the noose around her neck, this time both Aaron and Jessica grabbed the rope and pulled it so tight it lifted Kimmy off the ground, where she proceeded to struggle until eventually her body went limp. And don't forget now, Teresa's there just watching, I guess. I don't really know. Doesn't really talk about her. It just says that she was originally there. Aaron testified that her lips turned blue and she wasn't breathing, so they lowered her down to the ground. Teresa then stated she checked to see if she was alive. I'm assuming this means she checked for a pulse. And the reason I am unsure by what she means is because Aaron's way of checking was to throw a log on her stomach. I'm guessing the thought process here was to see if she would move or some shit, but
get some kind of like instant reaction.
Yeah, that's why I can only say I'm assuming when she said I went to check if she was alive. Like I'm assuming she was nice enough to just check that she had a pulse, not like kick her in the shin or something. You know what I mean? To see if like she moves.
Some kind of nerve to react or something.
So, but with the log, Kimmy actually does start to come to, and in the testimony, it was described as her looking like she was having like an asthma attack because she was gasping for air, and she was kind of flailing her arms and legs. And since it was obvious she was starting to breathe again and is very much alive, Aaron attempts, this kid, I don't understand his thought process of trying to help because they're the dumbest ideas. Aaron then attempts to burn the rope off her neck, and in his mind he said it was to relieve the pressure and, you know, to help her get off the ground. But it's a noose. Can't you just loosen that? Don't nooses like loosen easily?
I thought
once the slack is there?
I thought that's the whole purpose, so you could adjust the size of the neck and everything.
Right? And I feel like, again, his attempts are like at helping are so fucking stupid.
Unless it wasn't like an actual noose and it was just kind of like a loop.
Like
no, because even then you'd be able to easily loosen that, so never mind. Yeah, I don't know.
So that was his, I guess, thought process. But I mean, at least he's trying to help. That's the only thing I can say in his favor. Hey, at least he's trying to help after being a shithead. At least you're trying, I don't know, show some speck of decency, I guess. I don't know. But while this is all going on, literally Teresa and Aaron are trying to help this girl. Out of nowhere, Jessica, according to them, Jessica picks up a large ass rock, raises it over her head, and brings it directly down onto Kimmy's face, striking her at least 2 times. What the fuck?
So basically just smashed her whole face in?
Yeah. When this girl is clearly showing signs of life, and the 2 other kids are trying to help her.
You want to, you want to kill somebody if that's the case.
And that's why she's the main, and she's 16. You're 16 right at that, like, that's your mentality?
It's fucking twisted.
It did not have to get to that level.
No, it didn't.
There was no reason for it whatsoever. It was so senseless. One of the other kids, Patrick Lucas, had testified that when he was summoned back to where this had all happened, when he got back to the area, he said he saw Kimmy in a pool of blood and that he saw rope burns on Jessica's hands. That just shows you how much she was pulling.
You don't get rope burns easily, like just from holding a rope. That shit's got to slip through. Like, you got to be like, ugh.
You're working for it.
Yeah.
So the kids then proceeded to cover Kimmy's body with leaves and branches, and the rope was thrown into an abandoned car somewhere. I was wondering, actually, when I was researching, if they ever found the rope. I couldn't find anything on it, but I'm wondering if it was something that they eventually ended up finding and, you know, submitted as evidence or something like that. I was just curious. And then, according to Teresa and Dawn's testimonies, Jessica stated she wanted to do it again, And not sure which kids had stated this, but it was in the court documents, and it just said a few claimed that Jessica threatened to kill anyone who said anything. I also saw a lot of sources claiming that after Jessica killed Kimmy, she said that's what happens to snitches. But the only thing I did find weird is a lot of sources said that, yet in the court documents, when I was going through it, when I looked, I didn't see that anywhere, so I'm not sure if that was stated maybe during someone's testimony I didn't actually read, because there was only a few of the kids' testimonies I got. I didn't get all of them. So I'm not sure, if it was like something that was mentioned by one of the other ones I didn't come across, or if, the media just trying to make it more salacious than it actually was, or I don't even know if that's correct, because this is just sick. I don't know if salacious is even the right word. It's just, you know what I mean? I don't know. I feel like I'm not articulating myself good right now. Sorry. You know what I mean, though.
I do.
So, after all this, the kids, with the exception of Jessica, did in fact find a way to Florida. Not sure if they hitched or stole another car, but around Thursday of that week, some of the kids ended up calling home, and their claims were that they were in Florida. It was also made very clear that neither Kimmy or Jessica were with them. And at this point, it's been a few days, so everyone is still unsure of what is actually going on. But what they do know is that Kimmy is still missing. Finally, after a week and a couple of days, Kimmy's body was found near Clearfield in a wooded hollow, covered in branches and twigs, just as the group had left her. How and or who found her body is also another part of this that is confusing, because I found sources saying her body was found by hikers. I want to say one of them specifically was the Herald from 1998, right after this happened. But after her body was discovered, the group was arrested. But then I also found sources stating Aaron and some of the other kids from the group discovered the body. So I don't know if they pretended to find it and then later became suspects, or if it was something that was revealed during questioning, but it wasn't necessarily their interrogation. So that's where I'm confused, is because, I could totally see the hiker thing. I could see maybe it wasn't released to the media who actually came across the body, so they went with that. But the only thing I don't understand, if Aaron and some of the kids from the group led them to the body, but then they weren't arrested. I don't know. I'm just confused.
It's confusing. It doesn't make any sense.
Right?
Yeah. It's weird that there's no clear answer on who actually found her.
Yeah, I don't get, because in my mind it would be if you're arrested, usually you get arrested, and then part of your plea deal, you're if you can not give me death, I'll show you the body. That's usually a part of a reveal. But if you and a handful of other kids show the body and then you get arrested, why did you show them the body then? Because at that point the body was, they didn't know she was still missing, right?
I was just gonna say maybe they turned themselves in, but that doesn't make sense.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it just said after the body was discovered, they were arrested. Which makes me think that they were doing, the searches, and they were the ones that happened to come across. But then, at the same time, it was you were also the people that she was seen with last.
Suspicious.
Yeah. So, I don't know much. But what I do know is that after the group was arrested, the story really began to unfold. And one by one, the kids began confessing to what happened that day. At the time, all of the suspects, with the exception of Jessica and Aaron, took plea deals in exchange for their cooperation and for providing much needed information about what had happened to Kimmy. Since they all took plea deals, their sentencing is kind of a joke, but I guess also it depends on how much of a role they actually had in it, especially because according to most of them, they weren't even there for it. So, and in Kimmy's autopsy report, her cause of death was listed as a result of being bludgeoned with a rock. And there was only one individual that did that, so, I mean...
It's kind of easy to put one person away for a very long time and cool off with the other ones, and if that's the case.
Yeah, like, get the main person, in a sense.
Yeah.
Starting with, so for sentencing, we're going to do Tracy Lewis, the 24-year-old. She pled guilty and received 5 to 20 years in prison, which I believe she served the minimum and was released. 14-year-old Teresa Wolf received 6 months in a detention center, which, being the only other individual there at the time of the actual murder, you would think she would have gotten a little more. I know she was only 14, but she was still at least present for it, which I was a little like,
Maybe she gave a lot of information.
Oh, yeah, because she was the only one there. The only one that could probably testify directly against them, too. So she probably got a really good plea deal. You're right. I didn't even think of that. Dawn, also 14, received an unknown amount of time in a detention center. Patrick Lucas, who was 16, somehow his charges were dropped. And then there was Clint, who was 17. He spent only 2 to 3 months in a juvenile detention center, and afterwards he's actually ended up going on the Montel Williams show to publicly apologize, which Jody, who is Kimmy's mom, did not accept, and I kind of love that. I don't think I would be able to accept an apology either. I don't think I'd be ready for it.
Kind of loses its sincerity when you do it on national TV instead of behind closed doors, like face to face.
It's funny you should say that, because my next line is whether it was sincere or not, because I agree. I understand the public apology thing, but I feel like it only means something to go public if you have already done it in private, which clearly he didn't, because she stated she didn't accept it. She didn't want it.
Yeah, I feel like public apologies are like, they're for everybody else. They're not for the person that you're actually apologizing to.
And it's one of those that I don't necessarily think you're sorry. It's more about like image.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
You want to appear to be at least apologetic, but I mean, he still was the only one of all 7 of them that apologized. So even if it was public and if there is a question of sincerity, at least he still apologized, considering none of the other ones did, and I find that weird.
That is weird. But yeah, I guess you're right. At least he did. At least there was some form of apology.
Yeah. And I know clearly in these situations that obviously sorry is not enough, but in my mind, if you actually regret what you did, saying you're sorry is the least you can do. So,
I have to agree with that.
So as for Jessica and Aaron, they were seen as the 2 who were mainly responsible for what happened to Kimmy that day, which they absolutely should be. Because of this, they both received life sentences without the possibility of parole. However, in 2012, as everyone most likely knows, the Supreme Court ruled that mandatory life sentences for minors were unconstitutional. And therefore, with Aaron being 18 at the time of the murder, he did not qualify for this. So as of today, he is still serving his life sentence. Jessica, on the other hand, was only 16, and therefore her case was reviewed, and she ended up being sentenced to 35 to life. So the judge stated that he decided to resentence her to this because he felt that, based on the information provided, it was consistent with everything he had reviewed regarding the case, and that upon giving the sentence, he knew it would probably not make anyone happy. And then in 2018, after spending 2 decades in prison, Jessica's defense team argued that she has been successfully rehabilitated and appealed the ruling, stating that 35 to life is essentially still a life sentence, which I don't really agree with, because considering she went in at 16, if I don't know, if I'm doing my math right, wouldn't she only be in like her 50s if she was released after 35 years?
Yes.
Right? Because she has to, at this point, have time served. Like, they don't...
It should be like 56.
It doesn't...
Something like that.
Right. It doesn't start from... You don't get like a new clock, like 35 starting now.
Yeah.
So, granted, I know it's a long time and all, but like you took the innocent life of a 15-year-old in like a malicious and heinous way.
Yeah, it's not like it was an accidental thing. It's not like you were really apologetic.
And at this point, I feel like you can't even say it's like a group thing because
Clearly, it wasn't.
the other people in the group were trying to help.
Clearly, you were the main one who wanted to step overboard.
Like you took it too far. You took it to that level. That was your choice.
I mean, I get you're in your 50s, so that's gonna be like a real shit future, but you kind of gave somebody no future, so
Suck it up.
why do you deserve 50 years of freedom?
Yeah,
you know?
I agree totally. But honestly, the callousness of the act, regardless of age, needs to be punished in a way that fits the crime. So I think it's very, very fair. Like, you got 35 to life. That's better than your...
You didn't get life.
I was just going to say, that's better than what you had. You still have a chance. And the Supreme Court Judge Megan King felt the same when she decided to uphold the ruling. And in fact, she actually responded to the appeal by stating within her opinion that, I think this is hilarious, her opinion was 23 pages long. I don't know if that's normal or not. I'm like, that's a very long opinion. She was in favor of the previous ruling and that such a sentence does not constitute a de facto life without parole. So as far as we know, Jessica is still incarcerated, but she does have the opportunity to be let free someday. So as we wrap this episode up, I would like to refer to some words from Jody, Kimmy's mom. According to her, the only reason Jessica didn't receive the death penalty in the first place was due to the Dotts family wanting her to suffer through the rest of her life the way Kimmy did, you know? She stated that for the courts to change her sentence in a sense makes the original purpose and point for them seeking life without parole pretty mute. In my opinion, I think it's a slap in the face. But
yeah, I'm with you on that.
And I understand, like, they went through and assessed these cases, you know, case by case, and I understand she's showing rehabilitation and stuff like that, but at the same time, I 100% agree with the mom that there was a whole purpose for it, and now it's like as if their voices aren't being heard.
Yeah, the victims aren't actually being listened to.
Yeah, a victim's family.
Victim's family. Well, I mean, they're victims.
That's true. Very good point. So Jody stated that considering how young they lost Kimmy, the punishment should remain because it wasn't just a murder, it was a cruel murder, and I have to agree. I think the whole aspect that there was two kids trying to help undo what they had just did, and for no reason whatsoever, she just decided to go the completely other way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I know there are so many arguments out there when it comes to young offenders and how their brain isn't fully developed, and I get that, but I'm sorry, by 16, you are well aware of right and wrong, as well as life and death, and if your thought patterns lead you to think murdering another human being is a great idea, then fully developed or not, there is something wrong there, and you should be treated, in a sense, as a dangerous person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another tidbit that I found interesting came from Trooper Mary Jane Krapinski. She goes by McGinnis now. Apparently, when they were taking a break from interviewing Jessica, the two of them had gone outside, and to help with that awkwardness that kind of happens because you're just like standing outside, Mary Jane had asked Jessica where she went to school, and Jessica's response was, "I go to Clearfield High School, or at least I used to. When I get nervous and excited, I black out and people tell me things I did. I'll probably spend the rest of my life in jail." I mean, what is that? Is that the shock value thing again, or is she a little off? Like, what is that?
Yeah, that could go either way, because that is very shock value. Like, somebody who's into shock value saying that is, like, they're being that person, but I don't know.
And I can see
he might have just been a fucking lunatic.
Well, like, and also, like, for me, I'm like, I can see the 16-year-old person, like, you know, you try to, like, you want to act like you're tough. So I'm like, is that where that's coming from? Or I guess what I would like to know is like, was she like a monotone in saying it? Was it just very nonchalant? Was
she joking around? What's the like? How'd she say it?
Yeah, that's what I'd like to know, because I'm like, was she trying to put on this air of toughness to appeal to like the cops, or was it one of those where it's like she literally just had nothing going on, like it just was very just like a throwaway comment. I was about to say throwaway condom. I meant comment.
Well, those throwaway too.
So as for the Dotts family, it's understood that ever since Kimmy missed that Mother's Day back in 1998, they have not celebrated it since. And they actually completely ignore the day altogether, which is just awful, especially because they have other children, and the only thing the family can do now is they can just go on remembering their Kimmy as the sweet, loving daughter and sister that she was, which is, it's just so unfortunate because it was just so senseless, and it really did not have to go that way. It did not have. There was no reason for it to happen. So now before we go, we would like to introduce our shithead of the week. This is going to be a little ending segment, and it will consist of crimes that are more current and a little lighter in nature, maybe a lot lighter depending on what, we come up with. But we wanted to end on this because we feel doing this will kind of help leave you guys, in a lighter state, I guess, or, lift you back up after being brought way down. So I will hand it over to my co-host, Adam, and who do you have for us?
We got, well, it's actually 4 people, but only one of them got caught. But what's interesting is those people you just talked about stole a dog, and that's what these people did.
Oh, hey.
It was February.
Full circle.
Yeah, February 25th, so just recently in Centennial, Colorado. 3 dudes walked into this pet store separately, right? One of them asked one of the people working there about a couple of the bulldogs that they had in the back that apparently go for like $4,300 each.
Jesus.
While they're looking at these dogs, one of these guys falls to the ground pretending to have a seizure. Everybody rushes over to help him. Another guy runs into the back, opens up the case, yanks 2 dogs, and bolts out the place. One of the employees got in the guy's way, and he like stumbled and dropped one of the dogs, but he ended up snagging the dog, and they ended up taking off. And they got away. 2 of the 3 got away in a vehicle that was waiting, so there was a 3rd person in the vehicle, obviously, waiting.
Yeah, like the getaway car or whatever.
Yeah. So Tuesday was Timothy, D-A-I-S. I don't know how to pronounce that.
A-I-S.
He's 37. He's the guy who faked the seizure. He was the one who got caught. He facing charges of conspiracy to commit a felony. There was theft charges and drug possession charges. When I looked this up, the driver and the other 2 were still out there. However, one of the dogs was returned by a Good Samaritan who was just cruising around, saw those people on the side of the road selling dogs up in North Denver, and there was a sign that said $1,500. She bought one of the bulldogs, recognized it from the story in the news.
What are the
called
odds?
Up the pet store and was like, "Yo, I got one of your dogs."
I got your dog. Oh my God! What are the freaking odds that you would recognize?
The other one's still out there.
Well, it's funny because I always wondered where those dogs come from. Now, apparently, it's this huge.
Some of them apparently are stolen.
Whoa! I honestly didn't even know they still sold dogs in like stores and shops. I thought those were aren't those considered like puppy mills?
I have no idea. I think it's weird that they're purebreds.
I
feel like that's usually you go to like breeders and stuff.
Yeah, like on a farm somewhere.
Yeah.
So, whoa, that's crazy. What an idiot. But hey, I guess it kind of worked.
Hey, creativity.
I would love to see the security footage.
It's gotta be amazing. That shit's gotta be amazing.
Alrighty. So that is our shithead of the week, and that was the very unfortunate story and murder of Kimmy Dotts. Thank you for listening, And until next time, make your dash count and don't be a douche.
And don't fake seizures and steal dogs.
Yes, don't do that.